It started as a peaceful summer project. After years of hard work, I finally bought a lakefront property, a slice of heaven where I could fish, relax, and escape the chaos of city life. My dream centerpiece was a small wooden dock. Something modest where I could tie my boat and watch sunsets. It wasn't extravagant. It was just mine. But that serenity was shattered 3 days after I finished it. That's when Karen appeared. Her real name was Linda Carver. But everyone in our community referred to her as Karen. Behind her back, and sometimes to her face, she was the self-appointed queen of our HOA. A woman who believed her clipboard was a badge of divine authority. She marched onto my property uninvited, heels clicking like warning shots. "This dock," she said, pointing like it was evidence in a murder case, "violates Community Guidelines Section 5B, Paragraph 2, structures extending beyond 10 feet from the shore are prohibited." I calmly explained that the dock was only 8 feet. And that I'd even gotten a verbal okay from the previous HOA president before construction. She didn't care. "Verbal approvals mean nothing. You'll receive a fine and removal notice by mail," she said with a smug grin. I tried reasoning with her. I even offered to show the measurements. But she wasn't interested in fairness. She was interested in control. Within a week, I got a letter demanding the immediate dismantling of my dock and a $500 fine for noncompliance. That's when I started digging. I discovered that Karen had been running the HOA like her personal kingdom for years. She issued fines for flower colors, mailbox shapes, and even wind chimes that were too loud. The kicker? She manipulated the board into voting her full enforcement power. Neighbors whispered about her tyranny but feared retaliation. One elderly couple told me she'd fined them $200 for leaving holiday lights up 2 days past New Year's. Another resident had their fence repainted twice after shade inconsistencies. I decided I wasn't going to be another victim. I researched the HOA's bylaws, financial records, and membership rules. What I found shocked me: the HOA was technically a nonprofit, and shares could be purchased. Enough shares meant control. If Karen wanted to play hardball, I'd bring the whole game. I wasn't just going to keep my dock. I was going to own the lake, the rules, and every ounce of authority she thought she had. The plan formed quietly, but decisively. I would buy the HOA out from under her. And once I did, I'd make sure Karen would never dictate another sunset again. Buying an HOA isn't something people usually do. Most residents don't even know it's possible. But technically, our HOA operated as a corporation with shares distributed among members. The board controlled a majority, but several members had grown tired of Karen's dictatorship and stopped attending meetings or paying dues. That meant opportunities. First, I contacted an attorney specializing in real estate law. He confirmed my hunch. "If you acquire the majority of voting shares," he said, "you control the HOA. It's rare, but perfectly legal, if you can convince people to sell or assign their voting rights." So that's what I did. For 2 months, I went door to door, talking to neighbors. At first, they were skeptical. But when I showed them the fines Karen had illegally imposed and the HOA funds she'd spent on administrative perks, including a new SUV and a lakeside gazebo she claimed was for meetings, they changed their tune. Old Mr. Jensen, who'd lived there for 30 years, said it best: "Son, if you can take that woman down, I'll sign whatever you want." I bought out their HOA shares at fair market value, $1,000 each, and within 6 weeks, I held 62% ownership. Quietly, legally, and with paperwork in hand. Karen, of course, had no clue. She continued strutting around, issuing fines, and gossiping about that man with the illegal dock. When I received the HOA's next meeting notice, I attended with my lawyer. The room went silent when we entered. Karen sat at the head of the table, smug as always. "You're here to discuss your violation," she said. I smiled. "Actually, I'm here to discuss your employment." Confusion swept the room. My attorney handed out documents showing the ownership transfer. Karen's face drained of color as he announced, effective immediately. "Mr. Thompson now holds majority control of the HOA and all governing rights therein." "You can't do that," she shrieked. "Oh, I can," I said. And I just did. The look on her face was pure, stunned silence. The room burst into quiet. Laughter and applause from neighbors who'd suffered under her tyranny. Karen stood up, red-faced and shaking, pointing at me like she still held power. "This isn't over," she hissed. But it was. For her, it was the beginning of the end. The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. Word spread fast, and nearly the entire community showed up, many out of curiosity, others out of vindication. Karen arrived late, still acting as if nothing had changed. She wore her usual oversized sunglasses and carried her clipboard like a sword. "Let's be clear," she started. "You may think you can remove me, but the board has procedures." I interrupted. "Yes, it does. And according to Article 7, Section 4, the majority owner has full authority to reconstitute the board." "Which means?" I looked her dead in the eye. "You're fired." Gasps filled the room. Karen laughed bitterly. "You can't fire me. I'm elected by the same people who've just voted you out," I said, holding up a pile of signed proxies. The neighbors clapped. Some even stood. I saw Mrs. Jenkins, who Karen once fined for planting non-approved tulips, wiping tears from her eyes. I appointed a new board, volunteers, who actually wanted to make the neighborhood better. We voted to suspend all pending fines, refund those unjustly charged, and review every policy Karen had implemented. Then came the best part. I reinstated my dock, officially approved, documented, and compliant with new guidelines that made sense. No more 10-foot restrictions. No more nitpicking. Just common sense and community respect. Karen didn't take it well. She stormed out, shouting threats about lawsuits and reporting us to some imaginary higher authority. Within a week, she'd moved out, putting her house up for sale. Life around the lake changed almost overnight. Neighbors began smiling again. Kids played without fear of noise violations. The annual barbecue returned. For the first time in 5 years. We even renamed the lake Freedom Shore as a joke that stuck. People came together in ways I'd never seen before. It turned out that all it took to restore peace was removing one toxic person and replacing control with cooperation. Every time I sat on my dock watching the sunset, I thought about how close I'd come to letting Karen ruin my dream. Instead, I turned her rules into firewood for something better. And every ripple in that lake reminded me, power belongs to those who care enough to stand up, not those who just like being in charge. Months passed, and the lake community flourished like never before. Without Karen's constant policing, residents began taking pride in their homes again, not out of fear, but out of joy. Gardens bloomed, families laughed on their porches, and the sound of children playing echoed across the water. We used HOA funds for good this time, repairing sidewalks, upgrading lights, and organizing community events. Transparency became our motto. Every dollar spent was listed publicly. For the first time, everyone felt like they belonged. One day, while sitting on my dock with a cup of coffee, I saw a "for sale" sign go up on Karen's old house. It didn't sell fast, rumor had it her reputation followed her. When a young couple finally moved in, I personally welcomed them with a basket of muffins and a laugh. "You're not going to get fined for the wrong color curtains," I told them. They laughed, relieved. "We heard stories," the husband said. "Trust me," I replied. "They're true." Later, as the sun dipped low, I reflected on the entire saga. What started as an unfair fine had turned into a revolution of fairness. The community wasn't just free from Karen, it was free from fear. Ironically, buying the HOA didn't just save my dock. It saved our neighborhood's soul. People stopped hiding behind blinds and started waving again. The dock became a gathering place, neighbors fished, grilled, and celebrated birthdays there. It symbolized not defiance, but unity. A reporter once called asking to interview me for a local hero segment. I declined. It wasn't about revenge or recognition. It was about principle and proving that sometimes the only way to beat unfair power is to take it away completely. That night, as I watched the reflection of stars ripple across the lake, I realized something profound. Peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from ending tyranny. Karen taught me that. And though she's long gone, her legacy became a reminder carved in every board of my dock: stand your ground. Fight for what's right, and never let small minds dictate big dreams. My dock still stands strong. So does our freedom. And somewhere out there, I hope Karen learned one simple truth. You can't control the tide when the whole lake rises against you.